Okay, everybody, Chris Taravasi here. We're going to get started with the 2024 HIPAA Privacy, Security, and Breach Education and Training Session. For many of you, this is a redo of the previous year's programs with some new and exciting things. And for others, if you're a new employee to MHA, welcome. And this will be your first introduction to probably the most important training session I think that I get to do. And that is the HIPAA Privacy, Security, and Breach Training. So without further ado, I'm going to effort to try to make the program work the way I want it, which is like that. There we go. So what are the goals for today? Goal number one, appreciate our patients are depending on us to protect their privacy, as we would expect from others. Appreciate that the effort to be diligent is just good business also. People expect us to do this, and it follows federal and state laws, which are important. And three, appreciate the failure to follow number one and number two can impact our patients, our company, and your employment. So it is a very important thing to pay attention to. And just a side note, we are still in the process of upgrading our J drive. The goal is for people to have access to the files that they need as part of the day. And for the staff, we want that to be an access to resources, policies, procedures, training programs, and other files within your division and across MHA as a whole. So it's a work in process, and appreciate your patience while we continue to work through that. Okay, so Chris, why are we talking about HIPAA again and again and again? And the reason is because healthcare has now risen to the very top of those organizations, those industries that continually get hit by hackers trying to break into our data. What you're looking at are a couple of graphs that show the average cost per data breach, and actually the number of breaches that have occurred in the past year. And you can see that blue line, how it spikes. It's not getting any easier. And in fact, we're investing more in order to protect our valuable data. As far as MHA itself goes, every month I get this report called an incursion report. And what this report shows is the number of times that some outside agent is trying to access our system via our firewall. In December of 2023 alone, we had well over 1,000 attempts, which average about 59 per day for these attacks. So this is something we take very seriously, and these folks, these nefarious individuals, are trying to get into our site. And besides that, the government says you need to protect your data or else you'll face pretty big fines. Fortunately, we've never had to worry about this, and because of that, we continue to be diligent to see it never happens to us. But the fines are real. And if you want the information, this is all public record stuff. This goes back, what you're looking at now goes back to the summer of 2022 when we had a mom file a complaint directly with us first, saying that we refused to release records to her, phone records, in fact, for her patient, for her kid, which truthfully never existed. But anyway, she went ahead and filed a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights. What you're looking at is the stack of papers that we had to accumulate, working with two different attorneys to basically fight the case. And we submitted this information the November of 2022. Here it is, January of 2024, and we have not heard the results of our case yet. So this takes time and takes money, so we take it very seriously. All right, so let's talk about, here's a review. What are the three HIPAAs? We should just be aware that there are actually three pieces to the HIPAA world. Transaction sets is something that is behind the scenes, something we never see, but this is the ability for these disparate systems to talk to each other. Basically, they're trying to create data, the LOINC codes, if you're familiar with those things, codes that enable disparate systems to be able to communicate. Privacy and high tech, we're more familiar with that. The privacy law came about first. That sort of established the groundwork for what became after, which was high tech, and then eventually security and breach. So HIPAA, if you recall, really is about two things. One, a health data, a piece of data. It can be an X-ray report. It can be a lab result. It can be a chart note. It can be anything that is a data. And then to make it PHI, you have to add the additional ingredient of an individual identifiable. In other words, you have to take somebody, attach it to that data point, and together that's what creates PHI. Can't have one without the other. You can have privacy issues on the identifiable side of things, but HIPAA is about protecting PHI itself. The privacy law, it's been around for 21 years now. HIPAA high-tech came afterwards. That just enhanced it. That introduced the concept of breach. And then the New York State got in the act in March 2020 and expanded it beyond PHI and included privacy from the standpoint of people's individual identities, addresses, phone numbers. So New York State went one step further with the SHIELD Act. Sorry. Okay, so the basic tenet of HIPAA. It's very important to appreciate where the law starts is that we cannot use or disclose any PHI, period. No one can. It's in a box, you can't protect it unless it's accepted by the law. And what are the examples of accepted by the law? Number one, treatment. Number two, operations. Number three, payment. The acronym TOP is used sometimes. So this piece of the law is what permits us, medical health associates and the divisions and the nurses and the doctors and so on, to be able to communicate PHI back and forth between each other, between other physicians, between the hospital, between facilities, between laboratories, between the billing office to health tech, and so on and so forth. So TOP is the exception to the rule that allows us to work this data, this PHI, without getting expressed permission by the patient, okay? Now, other than TOP, the only way we can release data is if the patient permits us to do so, or if we're compelled to do so for some legal reason. We get a court order, we get the county medical executive gives us a document. Those are the only other times that we are permitted to use or disclose data. Okay, security rule came about, as I said, later, and that's all about ePHI, which is just taking PHI and electrifying it using one of these things: email, fax, computer access, so on and so forth. Social media now has been added to that, the portals and so on. So security rule is really all about electronic PHI. Okay, there's something in the regs called minimum necessary requirement. This is the part of the law that compels us only to use that PHI that is necessary to accomplish a specific task. This is where we're not supposed to go hunting and pecking for other things unless it's something that pertains to the case at hand, okay? Privacy practices. The privacy practice is, as I said earlier, sort of where everything started. Every office has access to the privacy practices. This is the thing that we have patients sign off when they come into the office. They're welcome. Any patient can see our privacy practice. You go to your department head and said, this patient wants to see our privacy practice. We can email it to them. We can give them a hard copy, print it off our printers, and so on. It was last updated April of 2022. I don't think we have a reason to update it unless the law changes. So it is a document that exists. We do have a HIPAA manual. This manual, I think it's 119 pages now, is the manual that relates to every single part of the law, piece by piece, and it's reviewed every year by your security officer to be sure it's current, and it's used as the basis to prepare programs such as this. A designated record set is something that's within the policy manual that talks about what MHA recognizes as part of the data set. In a short way, what it means is it's everything that relates to the medical record that in some way influences the care of the patient. There are things that could be excluded from the designated record set. For example, if a court order comes in, for example, or a legal request comes in, for example, it does not impact the care of the patient. That document does not have to be included in the designated record set. So if there's a records release request, we release the designated record set. We don't have to share a legal document. That's one example. There's something else called incidental exposure. Incidental exposure relates to those situations where somebody comes across a document, for example. The government's very lenient in as much as it says they don't expect us to protect data from every single possible way that it can be breached, that PHI can be breached. But they do expect us to use common sense and provide safeguards to do the best we can. For things like we shouldn't leave your recycle bin where you put your discarded documents or recycled documents in a place where patients can find them or get to them. We don't turn our computer screens facing patients. We're careful about talking in the hallway. We're just got to be cognizant of the fact that people sometimes can be nosy, and they probably listen and hear to things that they really shouldn't listen or hear. Okay, security risk assessment. Once a year, we're obliged to do what's called a security risk assessment. Yours truly, along with Jim from Health Tech, get together, and we go through everything we can think of with regards to our infrastructure and our system, which means we consider every electronic device. We have an inventory every month of every single PC, server, laptop in the company. We have to consider every staff person and what role they have in the organization. We have to consider outside agents. We have Health Tech. We have Abbott answering service. We have Night Nurse. We have all these organizations that have access to our PHI that we have to be consider as we move forward. We have to look at the systems we have. Of course, Medent is the number one tool we use for our patient care, and we have to be concerned that that's up and running properly as well. The bottom line is we have to be concerned with what are known as vulnerabilities. We always have to be on guard for things that we think add vulnerability to our infrastructure. And we have to be prepared to deal with them. The expectation is you don't get there. It's a process. It's a process you need to do every year to consider. If you don't cure a vulnerability, you have to consider why and maybe think of another way to try to address it. So what's the bottom line? I'll get to the bottom line. We really need to focus on accessing those charts, which the purpose is related to the care of your office. And especially keep that in mind when you're thinking about opening a chart. If it's yourself or a hospital portal, we've had situations where we get a letter from Kaleida because an employee went into their record at Kaleida and looked up their own records. Can't do that. I've had situations where a person, not necessarily here, looked up the records of a family member, of workmates, of friends, and even enemies. And in cases we have to be very careful. We have celebrities and we have athletes in our practice. We have to be careful that we don't access things that we don't belong. Just keep in mind that curiosity, caring, and snooping can get you in trouble. And I need to expand upon that because lo and behold, in this year, in May of 2023, I received this letter from the Office of Civil Rights, a formal complaint that was filed by a mom who said that an employee of ours impermissibly accessed the son's medical record in order to gain her personal phone number, and a violation of what you're seeing there, 164.530C, which is a direct violation of HIPAA. So, of course, as you can imagine, this came to me on the generic admin email. So it wasn't even a formal letter. We got this complaint via email, but nonetheless was no less important. So as you can imagine, that this is the regulation that it's citing that was breached, and we had to launch a formal investigation, which leads me to any policy that's worth its salt is worthless unless the policy has teeth. So in this particular case, given the situation, upon investigation, which took a bit of time, face-to-face with witnesses within the office, it led to a retraining program for that individual. And I feel very confident saying that situation has been cured. So bottom line is one time, and it caused a complaint to the federal government. So here's a quick quiz. Oh boy. Okay, Dawn, I'm not doing it, Dawn. Sorry, don't yell at me later. Okay, so here's a quick quiz. Vaccination information is considered PHI, true or false? Answer to yourselves. Make a hand signal to your next door neighbor. I'm looking at Linda Cheslakowski, who knows the answer, and she says it's yes, it's true. Vaccination information is considered PHI. She pointed to the screen and everything, which is very true. It's a data point. It's a data point, and it's PHI because, well, we're assuming it's attached to an individual. Reports and audits. The government expects us, and it's in our policy manual, that we have the ability to routinely and on-demand run reports that show certain things within our practice, i.e., in particular with MedEd, who has access to PHI and that kind of thing. So we have examples to show you. The first one you're looking at is known as the login tracking and activity report. So what you're looking at is a report, Lisa English in particular, we're picking on Lisa, and it shows on a daily basis how long she was accessing MedEd. So you can see there that Lisa tends to sit on her system for a while, but there it is. So we have proof that Lisa English, or at least her sign-on, accessed MedEd for periods of time throughout the day. The user login status is the report that shows us those people that attempted to access their system. In some cases, that access fails or someone gets locked out. It tracks every attempt to log into the MedEd system. And the report that we used in that investigation I just mentioned was the audit report for user. In other words, for that user, what medical record, what ID, patient ID did they access? And in some cases, it tells you where they went once they were in. So in this case, we're picking on Alyssa Loomis, who has access across MHA, and we can see exactly what records she accessed. In the case of that I mentioned earlier, the employee went into that patient's record 6 times for some strange reason. So again, that all came out from these reports that we ran. Any questions? Well, I hope so. If you do, you can email them to me because there's no chat and you can't speak. So I guess that was a superfluous slide. That was a teaser slide. I apologize. Quick quiz. Okay, so who is your HIPAA security officer? You all wondered. Is it your managing partner, your nurse manager, your CEO, Linda Cheslakowski, or all of the above? And Linda appropriately pointed to me. So yes, that is true. Your security officer is your CEO. And with that comes a bunch of responsibility. One is to do exactly what we're doing now, to train, communicate, to update policy and procedures, really represent the company in regards to doing the best we can to protect the integrity of our data and our infrastructure. Now, what you can do with the security officer is keep an eye on things that can cause us harm. For example, I should not, you should not, Linda Cheslakowski should not download software programs without first consulting at tech. Sometimes it'll say, hey, it's time to update this or that. Don't do it. Don't do it without checking first, at least with your department head. And then if she or he says so, to go forward to add technology, or even me, or the security officer. Do not open email attentions associated with personal email, zip files, jokes, videos. Open email attachments only from individuals who you know, and even then, double check the sender's address. And if you receive anything suspicious, be sure to let your manager know, your department head know, because sometimes it may be going to multiple people. Yes, that was the number one critical issue that was raised years ago as a result of our vulnerability testing. So here are the 2 basic mechanisms that attackers use to infiltrate our system. One, malware, which is your ransomware. These are downloaded computer files with the goal of infiltrating your domain, your network. And 2, phishing emails, which are carefully and deceptively crafted to fool me into giving up passwords or to open a file we shouldn't, or to do something. And you'll see examples of that in just a second. Now, to help train us, to help us be better personally and within our company, MHA invested in this program called PII Protect, which is a training program that each of you individually has access to if you sign up for it. MHA has not mandated that you do this, but MHA strongly recommends, which is one step above recommends, strongly recommends, which is one step below mandate, that you should do this. I guarantee you'll learn something. I guarantee you it'll protect you, and it'll protect you once from having your identity stolen. You're going to call me and let me know that happened. Okay. So anyways, what you're looking at, and I not perfect at it. I get on like every 2 or 3 weeks. My score December of 2022 was 643 out of 800. It's okay. I did okay because I'm not real good on tests. At this point, I'm at 560. Why? Because I failed myself. I opened up a bad link as part of the testing program. And once you do that, it sends you back, and now I have to get caught up again. So even someone, I like to think that I'm pretty in tune with what's going on with the security thing. I can always be better. I can always continue to learn. And I would encourage you to learn from me and what I did wrong and get on this program at some regular basis. If you have trouble getting on, please email me, email your direct supervisor, and just hop on. I guarantee the vignettes are very short. The training program is very short. Invite your friends and family to join you. You'll all learn together. Have an adult beverage, whatever it takes. Hop on. Okay. Oh, that's my sad face after I realized that I screwed up, which I knew immediately after I did it because it told me, hey, you screwed up. Anyways, so it does keep score, and there are people who are really into it. I thank you for that. Some people are in their 700s, which is good for you. I'm proud of you. It doesn't give you a real name, so I won't embarrass you. But if I knew who it was, I'd tell you congratulations. Okay. Does this look familiar to anybody by chance? It was in, I believe, November, or was it December, of 2023. We all got this email. It was an email telling you that your login was expiring. Your Chrome login was like, and to go ahead and touch this thing and renew and so on. Well, few of you recognize it, and I always appreciate when people email me and say, Chris, this doesn't look right. Well, good for you guys because you caught it. This was one of the quarterly fake phishing emails that we send out to everybody in our domain from this PII Protect program I mentioned to test us and to see if we're paying attention. This particular one was our highest score ever. We actually scored 100%, which means nobody bit and went and opened the actual link, which is phenomenal. And Jim even said from Health Tech that this is a great result. And I'd like to think it's because some of you are paying attention. Even if you're not doing the program, at least you're gaining some knowledge and your spider senses are working. But this is a little concerning because I can tell from there the number of people who have yet to do any training at all. Again, I recommend strongly, one notch above recommend, one notch below mandate, that you take part in this training program. Okay, enough of that. So here's my annual, hey, look what came to Chris Terabasi emails. And these are real emails that I received. This one came from Men at Mobile, holy smokes, asking me to touch this, click here to activate your account, which I said, okay, I know we have Men at Mobile. I see a do not reply here from Men at Mobile. It is sent to us. That looks good. And we do have a patient portal. It just didn't look right. And because it didn't look right, guess what? I didn't touch it. And sometimes that's what it comes down to, is it just doesn't look right. And when you get that sensation that it just doesn't look right, ask somebody. This one is interesting because what do these emails have in common? What these emails have in common is, oh no, something's going on that you have to deal with immediately. Hop right on this. And also, even though you always want to look at the sender name, mia@virtualid.com. What is that? That doesn't make any sense. So this is an example of something that, okay, we do have mailboxes, but would we ever get a note like this? No. This one is a credentials to your account. Okay. Does anybody, this one I think was another one of the fake ones. Maybe it wasn't. Some people bid on this one. This was the previous one. And I was looking at this seriously. And then I realized one thing. Look at that sender name. Look what these guys did. Instead of an I in the word micro, they put the letter L. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. If you had touched that here thing down here, you could have launched malware. But that's what these sneaky little devils will do. They change one letter of what looks to be an authentic email to make this a bad email. Microsoft password authentication required. Oh my God. keep my same password. Well, this one's interesting. Look at the logo again. Sylvia at thefame.my. Doesn't make any sense. Certainly not a Microsoft email address. This was a first. This was the first I ever received one of these. A former manager at one of our offices sent me this text. Chris, this text went to her from ostensibly me, letting me know if I have a moment. So she responded, I am. Do you want to call me? And then I, the fake Chris, responded to have her go buy Apple gift certificates and to let them know when they're available. This came to a text message to her directly. This was a first in 2023. It came from me, but obviously the phone number, well, obviously these days there are all kinds of area codes out there. This was new. So a text scam, these are real. Okay. And last but not least, and this one was the most scary of the year, this email came to me from hr@mhawy.com, which is the legitimate generic email for HR department. It came to me with this MHA financial statements, APR, Excel has been shared with me. And I'm looking at this, and it was one of those, it just didn't feel right because I'd never seen anything like this before. Why would HR send me something about salary bonuses for April? It just didn't look right. It didn't look right. But this one was scary because what these buggers can do is they can create a shroud email on top of the actual email and overlay it on top of the actual sender's email. So again, you just, even though the sender looks good, it looks legitimate, it was not. It was not a legitimate email. In these cases, if you get something that's this sneaky, I would like you to send it to me because health tech have the ability to look behind the scenes at some website, some hacker website, and they can drill into what the original source email is. So again, that was the scariest one. And that ends that. Oh, one more. Oh, and the most common thing we get. So it's not as scary anymore because we already know it. Years ago, 2019, one of our staff people ostensibly sent this email to HR back then, and HR responded to it and changed this employee's direct deposit numbers. And guess what? The check went someplace else. I would say I get one of these at least twice a month, these direct deposit, and they come. Rebecca Doctor's not the first time she's asked me or asked Kelsey or someone to change her direct deposit. And I know Rebecca well enough to know that she's not going to change her bank that often. But anyways, and in some cases, I do respond to them. And I've actually reached out to them and said, oh, sure, we can do that. Send me your account information and I'll set it up right away. And I would say I've turned over about a dozen of these cases to the bank that they're trying to get their money sent to. And I've also turned over some of them to the FBI. But we get these all the time. And if time permits, I do have a little fun with them. Okay, so Chris, what's your point? It only takes once. It only takes once to mess up your home computer. It only takes once to introduce some evil into our system. So we have to be diligent when it comes to these emails, including me. Okay, password maintenance. We have two basic levels of passwords. I'll say basic. The domain level. The domain window is how we get into Windows, how we launch our session for the day. From there, we get into other things like Medint, for example, most commonly, right? And we change those passwords every 90 days. And you'll notice there's a line here, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And Medint also, we change them every 90 days. Remember, usernames are for audit purposes. That's your fingerprint. So if you're sitting in a system and you're not using it, you want to log out, and whoever logs in will use their username. Okay, so just be aware of that. All right. As part of the vulnerabilities last year, what MHA decided to do, the board approved investing in what's known as a penetration test. This is brand new. It just happened fourth quarter of 2023. The penetration test is a test where we hire an outside company. Basically, we hired professional hackers to infiltrate our system. We said, here, we're giving you the key to get into our system so you can access everything that you need to access to test us, test our integrity. So this past fall, we hired this professional hacker, and they tried to infiltrate from two directions, from the outside coming in and from the inside going out. What does that mean? First of all, the good news. The good news is MHA's infrastructure demonstrated to be very good. They were unable to attack our system from the outside in. They could not get past our firewall. So, thumbs up. However, yes. Good job, guys. However, the hacker easily compromised our network from the inside. And the answer to the question is 58%. Does anybody want to guess what the question is? Linda Cheslikowski? The question is, what percent of passwords were infiltrated by the professional hacker? They were able to find 58% of our passwords. So what does that mean? If they are ever able to get a username and password match, they could disguise themselves as you or me and get into our system and bypass the firewall because they think you're you or me. And if that case, and what I'm showing you here is the graph they shared, this could cause major issues. So this got our attention. So everybody take a deep breath. I'm glad there's only Linda in here with me. She won't throw anything. I see a pen, no. So to everybody take a deep breath. So effective February 1st of 2024, we're implementing a new password policy for accessing the MHA domain, okay? Some of these look familiar. All of our passwords for the domain will still need to include lowercase, uppercase characters, numbers, punctuations, but now 12 characters. Breathe. Breathe with me. But wait, there's more. The password cannot contain a word that can be found in the dictionary. So the word password, for example, cannot be part of your password. Yes, it's true, Joey. No. Last but not least, what we're recommending, notice I said recommending, but best practice is to use a passphrase and then modify it using numbers and special characters to make it compliant. So the example I used, as you can see, is I love working at MHA. But you can see how I doctored it up. Okay, everybody, you're still breathing. Good. Now, here's some good news, though. This applies to accessing the domain only. You can still leave your MEDENT password as it is right now. It's still going to go every 90 days. Some people may want to make them the same. That's fine. It's up to you. But this change only is the initial entrance into MHA's domain. That's one good news. The second good news is because this is going to increase the security within our system, you only will have to change this every 180 days. So we won't have to change it every 90 days. Once a quarter, you'll change it twice a year. How many people just like hung up, or are they throwing stuff at the screen? Yeah. Okay. Password. Okay. Password do's and don'ts. You guys know this. You don't share your password. You don't put it on a sticky. You don't write it on your name tag, back of your hand. Again, this is your identity here that you should protect as well. Okay. Just for fun, there is this website, and if you get the handout, you can look it up. There's this website called it's secure. How secure is my password? So I put my current password in, and it came up as 5 years. So once you do, when I do my new password, which I haven't done it yet, I do use. No, I'm not gonna say that. I'll do it again and see what it is now. But if you can beat 5 years, I'd like you to send me an email because I think it'd be kind of cool. Anyways, but that's a good. It's a good website. Give it a try. Whew, change the page. Let's talk about breach. Quick quiz. Sending a patient report to the wrong provider office is considered a breach. Sending a patient report to the wrong provider office is considered a breach. Thank you. It's true. Of course it's a breach. It wasn't where it was supposed to go. But let's just talk about, what does that mean? What is a breach? Real quick, breach is basically, technically, it's any unauthorized acquisition, access, use, or disclosure. That's what's in the law. But basically, is you're sending something to where it wasn't intended to go. The question then becomes, is where it went, can that be considered a trusted source? Which means to do that, you have to do what's known as an assessment. So first you identify, oops, I got a breach. 2, you do what's known as an assessment. And 3, what you're looking for is trust. So if you send a fax from that you intended for Dr. A's office, and you send it to Dr. B's office by mistake, chances are, and you've gotten these, Dr. B's office is going to call you and say, hey, Dr. A, this isn't our patient. We're going to shred this, but I just want to let you know you didn't go where you wanted to go. Trusted source, you breach, assessed, no problem. Same fax, Dr. A, oops, I sent it to Walmart. Oof, can't really trust them. You find out that it happened, guess what? You assessed it, can't trust them. That opens up your new responsibility. So you found a breach, what do? You go find Linda Cheslakowski. This happened, what do? Linda will assess the situation. She'll determine if it doesn't matter if it's EPHI or PHI. It doesn't matter. PHI is PHI. If necessary, you'll notify the security officer. We can do the assessment together. And the thing is this: if it was a breach, assessed, and not trusted, then we have to notify the victim, whoever PHI was violated, and we have to notify the federal government with every single breach. Here's the letter. This is the standard letter throughout MHA. It's in the security breach file. If you ever need a copy of it, you contact the security officer if you don't have one on your own. Very standard. Basically, it says, this happened. We apologize. We learned from it. You put some details in there. You don't get crazy, short and sweet, and you notify the victim. This is the actual website where we have to go and notify the federal government. It has to be done once a year, or I should say it has to be done no later than the February following the year that the breach occurred. But good news, well, bad news, if you have over 500 breaches, not only do you have to notify the victims, you have to notify the federal government, you also have to notify the press. You have to put a public notice out that there was a breach in your office. And there's the website for Dr. Lori, I guess. He's in Niagara Falls. I think he's a family physician or internist. This past year, I think it was in May. I don't see the date there. It's in there. I just can't read it. So February of last year, he had electronic medical breach, and he had to notify 2,673 patients that he had a breach. So, it doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it's not a good thing. Okay, quick quiz. Giving your patient results to a person who is not designated on the HIPAA form is a breach. Of course it's a breach, Linda said. She looked at me and said, why would you even bother putting that question on? Well, the reason is because you sometimes just, Uncle Joe came in with the kid. Can he bring a kid to the doctor, but can I release information to him? Can I see the lab? You have to have the appropriate consents in your HIPAA file. That's why it's a new year. We have to check our HIPAA forms, folks. We have to have new ones signed. I know it's a pain. It's one more thing to do, but we are responsible for doing this because, as I showed you in our earlier one, it's the number one reason why we can get in trouble. So get the HIPAA forms. Actually, our compliance committee is going to be looking at the HIPAA page on MedEnt to see if there's a way we can standardize it, because it can be the one-stop shop for all consents, all legal documents, all phone numbers, who has permission to do what, and that's a project for 2024. MHA has to report every breach to feds. Well, we already said that's not true. That's false, because it's only those breaches after assessment that have been determined to be untrustworthy that we have to notify the feds. Okay, contingency plan. That's all about, the law says, expects us to have a plan in place in the event we lose access to MedEd. Well, in our case, MedEd. And you all know you've lost power from time to time. You don't shut down and go home. You pull out papers, you go into plan B, whatever your plan B is for your respective division, and you take care of patients the best you can. It's not efficient, certainly. It's a pain in the tush, certainly, but you can still manage your patient population for that day, for that time period. Oh, and everyone should know about emergency@meded.com. If MedEd does go down, and the department heads know this very well, that is who you reach out to how you get a hold of MedEd. You send them an email to emergency.com. Okay, other EPA stuff, common sense stuff. Make sure your screen isn't visible by to the patients. Lower the laptop a little bit so they can't see the screen. If something's broken, we have to be sure we maintain it, we fix it, and I think we do a very good job at that. Let's review emails. Is your email encrypted? If you email from MHA family, which is Suburban Pediatrics and Tonawanda Pediatrics and Western New York Pediatrics and Maine Pediatrics and Tonawanda and Integrity Health Group and if it's it's within the MHA family, your email is always encrypted. Okay. But when any email from any of our family to anybody on the outside, Gmail, Yahoo, Verizon, it is not encrypted. So you cannot send email without encrypting it. But Chris, remind me how to do that. Okay, Linda, I will. You sprinkle fairy dust on it? No, you don't sprinkle fairy dust on it. You ask your manager, Linda, would you send this email for me? No, she's got enough to do. Or do you just type secure in the subject line? Yes, Chris. Take the word secure, put it in the subject line anywhere. The system will see that and know that email has to be secured. And not only that, when the person responds to you, it'll also be secured. So if you wanted to send a script to a patient, you could do that via email, but you have to put the word secure in it. Did I say that with enough enthusiasm? Okay. Then it says, okay. All right. I'm so glad you like the fairy dust. I know. Oh, there you go. Secure is the word. Okay. When you get back to your ranch, I'd like to have each of you look at your file manager and look at the hard drive, not the P drive, not the H drive, not the J drive. Look at your hard drive. Do you have EPHI on that hard drive, especially those of you using a laptop or a tablet? Because we should never have EPHI sitting on a laptop or a desktop, or desktop maybe. Certainly not a laptop, certainly not your tablets. Should not have any EPHI on that hard drive. Why? If someone takes your computer, off goes your PHI. Very much a problem. Very much a problem. And the nevers. Okay, we already talked about this. Those little sticks, those little USB sticks, not secure. The good news is all of our laptops are encrypted. So if by chance one doesn't get stolen, we're in good shape. But the issue is some folks use personal laptops when they're home. Got to be careful with those that you don't inadvertently download EPHI on your personal device. Finally, I'm done. And we are now using e-attestations on Paylocity. So our friend Kelsey will be uploading this document for those who aren't seeing it live and missing out on the fun and excitement real time. And you're going to sign off on the e-attestation, and you'll be done for another year. And it's 50 minutes. I started late. I did start late.